Hi, this is Brian Choi with the Food Institute, and welcome to the Food Institute podcast. This week, we are speaking with JP Comte, President of Barilla Americas. This is the first episode of a leadership series where we speak to some of the leading executives in the food and beverage industry. But first, whether you are a first-time listener or regular listener, we ask that you share this episode on your social media platforms. It helps us expand our reach, and we really appreciate it when you do so. With that said, I'll welcome JP to the show. How are you today?
Hey Brian, nice to meet you.
Yes, for your time and for your contribution to the food industry, and definitely for being a part of this podcast. So to kick things off, JP, please share a little bit about your background and how you arrived at your current role at Barilla.
Sure. So I'm not American. I'm not Italian. I'm French. Nobody is perfect. And basically, so I've got my MBA in France. It was in 1991. Then I joined P&G 1 year later in 1992, Procter and Gamble. And so I started in France, then I moved to Italy, then I moved to Switzerland in sales, marketing, trade marketing, shopper marketing. And my last job in P&G was to be the general manager for France and Belgium of our fine fragrance business. I left P&G in 2010. To join Barilla, I was in charge of our business in Western Europe from 2010 to mid 2013. Then at summer 2013, I've been offered this opportunity to cross the ocean and take the responsibility of the region Americas, which is made of North and South America for Barilla. So 10 years of company and fantastic journey so far.
Right. It seems that in your work experience, you've had many opportunities to work in different countries and also in different roles. Was that by design, JP?
Yes, it's something P&G is a big company operating on many categories in many markets, and so it was for me the perfect company to have access to these opportunities to learn. And I did work on laundry detergents, on baby diapers, on fine fragrances, on hair care, beauty care products in many European markets, because this is where I was based when I was in P&G, even if I had to come to Cincinnati quite often. But yes, I have chosen since the beginning to leverage these opportunities to embrace a more global view on how consumer and shoppers consume today.
Great. So, my next question is, looking at the company itself, the company right now, Barilla, has net sales of over 3.6 billion euros, and it has operations all over the world, from Italy to Europe to America, Asia, Africa, Australia. For a company that started in the 1800s, and given the size that it is today, what are the main goals of the company going forward, and how does your responsibility over the Americas contribute to those goals?
Sure. So yes, as you rightly said it, it's a company which was born in 1877, so almost 150 years ago, by a gentleman called Pietro Barilla. And today, the company is still a family-owned company. So we are now at the fourth generation. So Guido, Luca, and Paolo Barilla are in charge of this company. And their obsession, if I may say so, which is the mission of the company, is to bring to the world joyful, wholesome, and honest food, inspired by the Italian lifestyle and the Mediterranean diet. So this is basically what we stand for, leveraging our Italian roots. We want to bring to the world a food which is always more healthy, always more nutritious, always more joyful. And so this is part of the journey that we have today. When you look at the world, so we still have a business which is still very concentrating in Europe, as Europe is almost 70% of our $4 billion of revenues. The region Americas is the second biggest market. So the combination of North and South America is about 20% of our global revenues. Regarding Asia, Africa, and Australia, we started seriously our business there about 10 to 15 years ago. We grow fast, but it's still only 10% of our business. You probably know the company for the pasta and sauce brand, which has the name of the family. But
Right.
the reality is that half of our global business is made of bakery products. What I mean by bakeries, crackers, cookies, breadsticks, bread. So these are brands that we have mainly in Europe, so in Italy, in France, in Germany, in Sweden. You know some of these brands probably in the US, which is called Wasa, WASA, which is a
Right.
crisp born in Sweden. So we have some business in the US. The brand is growing very fast. But again, here in the Americas, we are almost known for our dry pasta business.
Right. Is it fair to say, JP, that the Americas and in Asia and Africa and Australia, those regions are the fastest growing in terms of net growth, or is it pretty even across the board?
No, it's you're right. It's these are the regions growing the fastest. Especially when you look at Latin America, so we have a business growing very fast in Brazil. It's the case also in Russia, where we have a fast-growing business. It's the case in Japan, in China, of course. So yes, these are the regions growing at a faster pace.
Great. My next question, JP, is related to innovation. Innovation is constantly spoken about in boardrooms in many food companies. How do you think about innovation as a leader of a multi-billion-dollar company like Barilla? And what are some of the key innovation initiatives for the company going forward?
It's a very good question, because when I tell people that I work on business pasta and sauce, so they look at me, but how can you innovate on categories which seem to be pretty stable in terms of product? And I will take, if you allow me, I'm going to take probably 4 or 5 examples. And
Sure.
so here in the US specifically, we have 3 opportunities to continue to develop pasta consumption. The first opportunity, people love pasta, but for some of us, because of our cooking skills, because of our lack of time, we don't want to take the time, or we don't know how to really cook dry pasta, okay? Because it can be a long process to make the water to boil and cook the pasta, and then after put the sauce and clean up everything. And so there was, and there is still a huge opportunity in the convenience space. Okay, so I love pasta, but I want it fast and easy. And so that's why a little bit more than 3 years ago, we came to the American market with a product which is called Ready Pasta, which is basically a pre-cooked and pre-salted pasta in a pouch that you just need to put in a microwave and cook for 60 seconds. Okay, so you have a delicious al dente pasta in a minute. Needless to say that in line with our way of doing business, which is always very close to our North Pole, which is good for you, good for the planet. In this product, you just have durum wheat, extra virgin olive oil, and sea salt. So no preservatives, no GMO as any product made in Barilla. And so that's a product which is meeting a significant traction, especially with college kids, but also parents who don't have the time to cook some snacks for their kids. So this is one innovation addressing the specific need of convenience. Another innovation on dry pasta was a couple of years ago when we came to the market with a pasta which is made of legume flour. So could be chickpea, could be red lentil. And this specific pasta answers the need of some consumers for sources of lean proteins. Okay, you probably heard about this trend of plant-based proteins, and so this pasta, which is made of legume flour, is tapping into this opportunity. By the way, it's a pasta which is gluten-free, as neither lentils nor chickpea are made with gluten. And one of the key points of difference that we have in this pasta in Barilla is that our pasta is made of only one ingredient. So we don't have any fillers, we don't have any gums. So this is a pasta which is extremely simple to understand from an ingredient point of view. So I can talk about talking about sauce. We just launched it was a year ago a premium line of product which is called Vero Gusto, which in Italian means true taste, which is a sauce that we import from Italy. Extremely clean label, made with Italian ingredients. So you find it now more and more in grocery stores in the US. Very transparent label. So which is another way to innovate and dare to go in a space of products which are always more authentic, always more transparent, and always more healthy. Okay. So these are some of the innovations that we make on the products. We also look at experiences beyond the product. And I will take just one example. We have two restaurants in the US which are called Casa Barilla. One is based in New York on Manhattan. The other one is in Orange County. And through these restaurants, we connect very closely with the American consumers of these markets. And so we continue to deliver this true Italian al dente pasta experience through this solution. So these are some of the innovations that I can mention.
No, that's wonderful. And JP, when you talk about the convenience and the legume flour and the sauces, from inception, from concept to actually a go to market, right? How long is that process? Can you share a little bit about how what the process is like and how long it takes for a product to finally make its way to shelves?
Yes, it depends a little bit about the project. So some of them have a global scale and a global scope, and the legume pasta is definitely one of them. So we did launch these products not only in the region Americas, but we did launch it also in Europe as well as in some markets in Asia. And if I take this product, it took more than a couple of years because we wanted to come with a recipe which was made of only one ingredient. And you probably don't know it, but what makes the flour made of durum wheat, so semolina, stick together is the gluten. And to come with the same result with the flour, chickpea or lentil, it's much more complex. So that's why the R&D challenges was probably bigger on this kind of product, and it took more than a couple of years. On ready pasta, we came to the market in about 16 to 18 months between the ideation, so the concept, to the execution. So usually it could be anywhere between 12 and 18 months.
Wow. Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. Now, shifting gears a little bit, 2020, this is a year that will likely be remembered as one of the most devastating economically and volatile years in recent history, with the economic impact of coronavirus and the cultural impact of the social justice movement. Specifically regarding COVID-19, what are some of the lessons learned from going through this experience? And how will Barilla be better prepared if another pandemic occurs, let's say in 3 years?
So there are many lessons. One of them is with regards to the consumers we serve. One of them is related to the shifts across channels, and so the way people shop. We had also some learnings, obviously, in our way of doing business, also with our employees. So let's start first with the consumer. What we saw in the last, I would say, 3 to 4 months, Brian, is that by necessity, families and people were back home and had to cook from home, and so that's why. And we were fortunate enough and thankful to play on categories of products which are considered as essentials for the American consumers, and so we've never seen as many pictures on Instagram, on Pinterest of pasta meals, because beyond the fact that pasta is an affordable and healthy and safe and nutritious meal, it's also the perfect canvas to express your creativity as a human being. As we didn't have access anymore to travels and entertainment and stadiums and theaters, one of the only ways to express yourself was to get back to the kitchen and to cook. We saw, and our research starts to unveil also these trends. We saw that this way of being back to the kitchen together probably strengthen the links, the emotional links between the different members of the family if you live at more than one in your households, which is also an emotional benefit, which goes beyond again the functional benefit of preparing and cooking food. So we see this trend on the consumer. The channels, it's not a surprise to say that while the retail business, grocery stores and mass and dollar stores and clubs had quite of a positive trend over this pandemic. Unfortunately, our business in food service suffered a lot as restaurants and bars had to shut down their doors as of mid-March. So we saw some shifts there, and when we come to the retail space, we definitely saw, as we see it everywhere, a rise of our e-commerce business. So the different platforms where we can find your products we're having some clear tailwinds. So this is on the channels. In terms of employees, we had in Barilla, especially in the US, a fairly flexible work arrangements. We had obviously to be fully flexible at this stage, and while we knew how to deal with this way of working, we usually were not completely prepared as many companies. And so to answer your second question, if we had to go through the same kind of storm in the coming years, we learned a lot also from the way of working remote and access smoothly to our systems and the ones of our customers quite efficiently. I want to add, if I can, we were thankful to be part of a company where home is Italy. And so as of the end of February, we knew from what was happening in Italy that COVID-19 was not to take lightly. And so as an Italian-based company, we were probably more prepared than many other companies. And so we anticipated, by the way, most of the CDC guidelines in terms of masks and temperature scanners in the plants and social distancing practices. So that's why I'm glad to report that we have two plants in the US. One is based in Ames, Iowa, and the other one is close to Rochester in New York. And I'm glad to report that we had only one case so far, while we have 410 employees in the combination of these two plants. So yes, these are
No,
the
thanks.
big.
Right. No, thank you for sharing that, JP. I'd like to touch upon one of the comments you just made, and you said that during the pandemic, the relational aspect within the home, especially for families, with more than one, that bond was something that you noticed. Now, looking out over the next 6 months to maybe even a year, do you see that bond, continuing? Where do you feel that, based on what you've seen from the sales perspective in the Americas, do you think, even if the food service is open, do you think that the likelihood of families wanting to cook from home more frequently, will that continue? And if so, how much so compared to what you see today?
It is very difficult to predict, as you can imagine, and I think that the consumer segmentation will probably be even more sophisticated now and in the future than it was before COVID. I think that people will react completely differently when the world will completely reopen, when it reopens. And I think that we will see probably some different phases before the vaccine, after the vaccine, or before a potential second wave, after a potential second wave. We will see very different behaviors also by markets, depending on cultures, depending on the way we went through this pandemic. So some people will remind this period as something definitely weird, but not as traumatic as others might think about it, because they've lost some loved ones, or they had some struggles from a health point of view or a financial point of view. So I think it's very difficult, Brian, to have a kind of one size fits all. Hopefully, people will get back to restaurants again, because there is obviously an immense value to connect and to socialize also out of your household. How much it's going to be and how fast it's going to be is very difficult to predict. And so that's why we invest a lot. And back to your previous question on how we can be prepared, we invest a lot in consumer understanding, to understand again how we will need to remap the consumer segmentation, and how we can answer sometimes, by the way, contradictory needs. Some of them will go more premium, some of them will go more good value for money and affordable. So how we can have an answer to many of these different and sometimes contradictory needs.
Got it. And regarding the social justice movement, we've seen a huge influx of companies and executives be very much involved, in this movement. How has the Barilla team responded to this event?
So before starting to communicate on anything, the first thing is that we need to work. Okay, roll up the sleeve and work. And so we've built in an action plan in the last couple of weeks, which is owned by HR, obviously, but with the support and the inspiration of our ERG in charge of African American and Hispanic issues. And so they came with an action plan on 4 pillars. Okay, one of them is about education, so how we can educate ourselves, and to the point I was making before, trigger these conversations internally to learn and listen. The second part of the plan is to amplify, accelerate our support to some NGOs we were historically working on in the space of good and healthy food access. Okay, I can mention here in Chicago, Urban Growers Collective. I can mention in New York City area, the Harlem Grown. So these are NGOs that we support for years now. And I think that we can do more, not only in terms of access to fresh and healthy food, but also in terms of career opportunities in Barilla. So the second point was really about communities. The third one was to put KPIs. Okay, as you can imagine, so we first checked that our house was in order in terms of pay equality. So to make sure that as we don't have any gap between men and women, we didn't want to see any gap between white and non-white, and so we were clear on that. But we can definitely increase our representation of Black people, especially in the senior leadership levels of the company. So we are putting in place some KPIs, because you get what you measure, and we will be very intentional to promote and advance on this area. And so the last leg, the last pillar of the plan will be and will only be to communicate, but when we feel that we are legitimate enough to participate to this conversation externally.
I appreciate that, JP, because to have a thoughtful and well laid out plan like you just described, I think that's not only the smart strategy, but it also prevents some possible mistakes. If you communicate a little bit too early, it could have detrimental effects on the company externally, but also internally. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a very important point that you just shared, JP, and I appreciate that. Going on to my next question, JP, after going through one of the longest bull markets in history, there are many food and beverage companies that are struggling. Not just financially, but culturally, and there's a lot of volatility and uncertainty for the future. As someone who has been through a number of business cycles and crises, in your opinion, what are the top 3 things that food and beverage executives need to be thinking about now and leading into the second half of 2020?
I think, Brian, that as a food industry, our collective responsibility, I would say, learning from what happened in the past 4 months, is to contribute to, I don't know if I will use the word repair or improve the food system. Okay, I think that this pandemic has evidenced the fact that one of the biggest inequalities today in the US, but all over the world, is access to healthy food. Okay, we had many other inequalities, unfortunately, but this one, we as a food industry, I think that we feel legitimate, if not forced, to continue to work hard, each and every one of us, to provide to the American population, no matter your social, economical class, no matter your color of skins, no matter your background, a food which is always healthier, always more nutritious, because food is definitely medicine. We know it now. And so I feel very good working for a company which puts it at the center. It's really our compass, our North Pole. So how we can make the food that we bring to the American table, as Pietro Barilla would have said, by the way, give food to the people that you would give the food that you would give your own children. So how we can do it? Launching food which is always more nutritious, always more affordable, so to enable this mission to come to life. And so we were talking about innovation before. Innovation can be definitely in terms of product, and so I mentioned, for instance, on this plant-based protein pasta. It can be also in terms of packaging, so make sure that the packaging we put on the market are always more respectful of the environment while continue to be safe. So these are some of the innovations we can work on to try to improve the food system, which have shown recently some hiccups.
Got it. My second last question, JP, is related to leadership. Do you think leadership is lacking in today's companies? And if so, in what ways? What type of leadership traits are required right now in the current environment, in your opinion?
I don't know if it lacks of that. I've read lots of things of the blues of some CEOs because what we had to go through was definitely unprecedented, and even if we have tons of crisis management trainings and all of that, this scenario was definitely very extreme. So I don't know if collectively or individually there was a lack of leadership, but what I think what will make an efficient leader, an effective leader tomorrow are a couple of things. So the first one is your ability to promote diversity and make the workplace as inclusive as possible. So the more different the voices can be in your company, the better for your business. Because if you don't have this diversity of thoughts, this diversity of backgrounds, you will never be able to serve these increasingly complex consumer needs. Okay, so I think that a good leader tomorrow will be the one really walking the talk and promoting this diversity in terms of gender, in terms of races, in terms of sexual orientations, in terms of passports. Some of them can come from Asia, some of them can come from Europe. It will enable you to understand the complexity of this world. The second one, and especially in a world where work at home will be not the norm, because I think that we need to have the right balance between building bonding and company culture, so in the office, and working from home when you need this flexibility, but it will require even more empowerment and trust in the people you work with. And I think that promoting a culture where people are empowered to make decisions and trusted and rewarded and made accountable for these decisions is probably a winning organization tomorrow. So these are the two aspects of leadership that I would see emerge and winning in the future.
I would completely agree with that, JP. And for my final question, if there are any words of wisdom or last thoughts that you'd like to share with the Food Institute's audience, what would they be?
I think that it's obviously very difficult today to imagine the impact of what we had to go through in the past 4 months, both in terms of COVID-19, but also this racial justice movement which went there. So I think that we need more time to digest and when this dust comes down. But while we need to acknowledge that what happened is very sad because people lost their lives, people lost their jobs. I hope that we will be, us and as food industry, wise enough to project to design and to execute plans again, which will make this planet a better place to live, not only for few people but for every one of us. So this is my hope, and I hope that all these the sad things which happened in the recent past will be positively turned into something positive for the generations to come.
Thank you so much, JP, for sharing those thoughts. So this wraps it up for us at the Food Institute podcast this week. JP, where can our listeners go to learn more about you and Barilla?
So you can definitely go on our websites. So we have a Barilla website in the US, which is more about our brands and the recipes and all of that. If you want to learn more about the company globally, we have a website which is barillagroup.com, which is in English, and so you will see there the usual reports and vision and mission statements that I was referring to. If you want to go a little bit further, Guido Barilla, so our chairman, founded a foundation about 10 years ago, which is called the Barillas Center for Food and Nutrition, so BCFN. And so if you go on the BCFN website, you will find the contributions of this. It was born as a think tank. Now it's a foundation, which is about all the challenges and opportunities that food is bringing now and for the future, and which is for the company, for Barilla this time, a source of inspiration in the way we design our innovations. We reformulate some of our products to put always less fat, less salt, less sugar, and make them, as we said, good for you and good for the planet. So these are the three resources I would look at if you want to learn more about it. Or reach out directly to me through LinkedIn if you want.
Great. We'll definitely share the relevant links in the description of this episode. So once again, I'd like to thank JP for his time today.
Remember, Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian.
And remember, if you're new to the Food Institute podcast, please follow, like, and share. If you'd like to learn more about the Food Institute, please take a look at the links in the description to learn more about us and what membership could do for you. So until next time, this is Brian Choi signing off.